I really enjoyed what you've been writing on Substack, I think for like close to a year or something, if I'm not wrong. And I think just like we were discussing like prior to like recording the call, like with my job as like as a product manager, I mean, I think when we start, I think it's the same for you as well. When you decided you want to get into economics and you wanted to like become a professor, I think there was that innate interest in like you wanted to really like do well in economics and you wanted to probably become a professor. I think it's the same for me as well. I was and I am still very deeply ingrained into the tech and business. I do kind of like really enjoy like what I'm doing and stuff. But I think with growth and with age and things, with the exposure that we have, I think other interests also kind of like start seeding itself, and then you kind of can't like resist it, and you just want to like move towards it. I think that's the same. That's kind of similar with what's happening with me starting the podcast and stuff, and and things like this. But thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing and thank you for inviting me on. I'm excited to chat. Yeah.
I have so much to ask you actually, because first thing that I want to ask is that just a little bit about your background. You did a very like a normal process of like studying economics, becoming an economics. Like you worked in banks, you become then an economics professor. If I'm not wrong, that's like a super prestigious opportunity to like to be an economics professor, and you there's like just so much potential in that particular role, right? Like being like student facing and stuff. But meanwhile, somewhere down the line, you obviously made the switch. You decided, hey, I'm gonna like try something else, and you decided to try your hand on content creation, like working with like some very big content creators, and and even you like deciding to become like a writer and putting content out regularly, and all these kind of things. You write, first of all, I want to ask is that you write a lot about being relevant, being having the skill to be adaptable, and you have to be quickly adaptable to like, okay, what can I do next? How do I jump from here and stuff? So, as when you were at the phase of like being an economics professor, what are the skills or like what are the tendencies that you saw in yourself that kind of gave you the feeling like, hey, I can connect whatever skills that I have right now to step into something creative and do something creative. So, what are the
Yeah.
things that you identified in yourself when you were an economics professor, or when you were working, studying, or when you were working in a bank to kind of give you that hope or the clarity to decide, okay, I'm going to do something else?
Yeah. That's a big question. And I'm not sure I have like a short, snippy
You
snapshot
don't need to give
answer.
short answer. You can
Okay.
go on a tangent.
So yeah, okay. So I think I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I like looked inwards and thought, okay, I actually have the skill to do this. I think primarily it was like, as you were saying, oh, I just had this interest in this thing. When I was a kid, I love, loved reading, loved books, loved film. And like actually, one of my dreams as a kid was actually to become like a film director or like go into screenwriting or do something like that. And and probably this is something you resonate with, like, pursuing a so-called creative or artistic path in university from an Asian background is just, pretty unheard of. And I guess I guess that interest to do something a little bit more creative on the side never died down. And I was very lucky, well, lucky in the sense that after my PhD, I did a couple of years as a postdoc, and my postdoc years, it was, it coincided with COVID. And so I had a lot more kind of spare time at home to tinker away on these side interests. And at the same time, because everybody was locked at home in COVID, there were a lot of opportunities that came up in the creator space. And that really unlocked my understanding of how that world works. For me, I always thought, when you see somebody on the face of a YouTube channel, it's just that one person. And from that period, I discovered, oh, typically behind one person there might be 10 people supporting with the production, the writing, etc. And that kind of just unlocked a world for me. And yeah, so I would say maybe it's not so much that I looked inwards and thought, oh, I have the skills to do XYZ, but I think I was very lucky with the circumstances, as lucky as one can get during COVID, to think, oh, there are these opportunities and I have the time and the energy to do it right now. Let me give it a go. And so it really started from there, me thinking, oh, let me apply to some of these freelance writing gigs, see what it's like. And then that's one thing led to another. But I would say I definitely had that underlying interest. And the fact that, oh, this thing that I was interested in as a kid never really went away, even though, I was an adult now and should be doing serious stuff, was for me a sign that, oh, maybe you shouldn't kill away that passion. I think like the things you enjoy as a kid, when you're really unconstrained about what the world thinks you should be doing or what you think you should be doing, that's quite informative.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I would say if I had to name like another, skill or another value, it would probably be be maybe something along the lines of I feel the most stimulated and the most uh happy at work when I when there's a sufficient degree of novelty. So I really, that period of, doing economics research, teaching, as well as having this side thing in the creator space behind the scenes, um, was really like intellectually stimulating. Like I felt like I could, think about deep stuff when it came to research, and I could like execute fast and have really interesting conversations in a space that was really up and coming. So I think maybe that it's not really a skill, I guess. It's really like that drive for like finding different things, which can really be a benefit and a curse. I think I probably could go down a lot further in a certain direction if I were a lot more like, okay, just one thing and focus on that one thing 100%. But by nature, I think I'm a little bit more, I like tinkering with different things. And that's really the thing that like led to the switch.
Yeah. I think I relate to that as well. Sometimes I do wonder, wow, life would be so much easier if I could just have my brain in like one thing and just like go 100% into that instead of having like this like having this feeling or this innate desire to just like juggle like multiple things because I just can't like let go of like wanting to become a podcaster, wanting to become a photographer, or wanting to write online and all this stuff. And but then when there's also like multiple things coming inside, sometimes I do get the feeling, well, life would have been so much easier if I could just like I had this thing of like just drilling down on like one thing instead of just like doing
It's a blessing and a curse, right?
yes,
Like we're
it
so
is.
lucky to live in a time where we do have that opportunity to tinker away at so many things and to even know that those options are possible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as you say, oh, when you do more, when you want to tinker with more, it does come at a cost to certain. Is going into project management, is that your first? Is that have you always been in product management, or did you jump?
Kind of, yeah, yeah. I mean, I started as all my internships, all the years prior to that, everything has been related to what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
It has always been related to IT and business. So
Okay, nice, nice, nice. And then you started tinkering with other stuff like in recent years.
like it's like you said, I have also been like when I was like like as a teenager as well, I also wanted to write theater plays.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah, I wanted to write theater plays. I wanted to write stories and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But I think like growing up, like when I was like a teenager, I had like severe insecurity. I think there are like parts of it still like attached to me, even though I try to. For me, like just doing this podcast is like the 12-year-old me would not believe because I was just so severely insecure. But even this podcasting thing, the way that it happened is that it did not happen like naturally. It's like, hey, okay, wow, like I see the skill in me. Let me just do that. It was not like that. I kept it suppressed for years, like 2 years, 3 years, something.
Wow.
But then, there comes a point when it's not in your control anymore. The desire is not in your control anymore, and it just has to come out. Or you're gonna go it or else you're just sitting in a self-loathing space basically because you want to do something and you're standing in front of you, and that is how it actually like kind of started. I was like, okay, you know what, I just have to get out of my way.
Yes.
I just like ended up
And you'd regret it if you didn't give it a go, right?
I was so scared of regret, like
Yeah, big drive, right? Yeah.
and I think that's a good drive, right? Like fear of like regret. I think in a way it's like a good regret, especially. I think so. I think at least it has like worked out for me as well. I wouldn't say like. Would you say like fear in general is like a bad thing? I also have this feeling like I think I'm innately a good person, but the way that I conduct myself to other people is also I sense in myself I have a fear of, hey, if I don't treat the other person well, something will come back to me. So I have this feeling, yeah, I have that fear lingering constantly.
Right. No, I agree. I think, yeah, fear is definitely sometimes, yeah, fear is great. I think like always feeling a little bit, because if you don't feel fear, it means, you're in too safe an environment, or like doing stuff that's probably not too challenging. Or so I think like a sufficient degree of, obviously you don't want always to be fearful,
Yeah.
but I think like having an appropriate level of fear is always nice. And I agree with you. I think fear of regret is, yeah, that's like a scary thing, so, and that's a good motivator.
Yeah. Like when you said that it was during COVID, you kind of had this revelation, okay, let me try my hand at like content creation and everything. I think that was also like the perfect time. The time when you decided to like get in was like, because the creator economy was just like starting to like go on was booming. It was like,
Yeah.
not just that, at that point, like during COVID and now the few years after COVID, it was the time when the creators were able to really truly create like pen to paper and then to the digital form. Now we have this intervention of AI and a lot of other tech and everything. But back then when you got it was pure creativity.
Yeah, I feel really, really lucky. So I totally agree. I think the period of like 2019 to 2023, I would say, maybe stretching at 2024. Yeah, I would say 2023 was really that like boom period of the creator economy industry. And to be clear, like I never, I don't have a desire to, I've never went in thinking, oh, I want to be a creator or I want to be known for X, Y, Z. I was very much like, okay, I wanted to learn the skill of writing. And I was aware that, I was always like I guess my exposure to writing has always been in the traditional form, books, essays, that kind of thing. And I was very aware that like this form of writing was shifting. And I was really intrigued by this, this new media that was happening on the internet, and the way that these new artists, these new writers were finding a way to share their ideas on these platforms. And my main thing was really, okay, I was really curious about it and I want to learn. And yeah, and I felt very lucky that there were so many behind the scenes opportunities, because there's really no better way to learn the craft than just to see somebody who's made a successful business of it, do it. And yeah, so I agree. I think that was really a boom period. And just seeing how, okay, I think I would say that pre 2019, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, but I'm guessing that like, people didn't start writing online with the goal of like, oh, I want to turn this into a business. They just wanted to share stuff. They saw this, all these social platforms come out, and it democratized the way people would share ideas. They were intrigued by it. They started putting stuff out there. And then it's only, kind of like 2019, 2020, when people realize that, oh, once you have a massive audience, that's like a amazing way to then build a business on the back of it, because it guarantees you a distribution and a way to get traffic to whatever business you were building.
Yeah.
And I think that like that merging of the two worlds between, a creator who knows how to get attention through the stuff they create and write and film and produce, and so that world merging with, a business world, somebody coming in who knows how to operate a service-based business or create physical goods. And like when those two things come together, like I think, yeah, we've seen so many interesting businesses of that nature. Mr. Beast being a clear example with his, I don't know, is it chocolates, hamburgers, whatever it is. Um, you know, so yeah, I think it's been a really interesting period, and it'll be interesting to see how the next, 5 years, what that looks like for the creator space.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting switch, because I remember like, because prior to COVID, again, like, back in the early 2000s and 2010, in that period, I was also into writing, and like, but at that time we were not thinking, nobody was thinking about like monetizing it. It was more about like really driving your interest. Like, let's see how far I can drive my interest, and there was a real curiosity of like, okay, let me really read what Ines just wrote, or let me like, kind of like try to dissect her talent. There was something like that. after COVID, there was this chance to monetize it, which is not a bad thing. It's actually like a great thing because hey, you spent years cultivating this interest and cultivating this skill. Now you can actually monetize it, and you have an opportunity to allow more people get your work visible to like more people, not just within a small community, but the whole world can basically get access to it, which is again like a great thing. And slowly, I think now we are at, I think this whole conversation about likes, comments, and the clout and like this thing, I think that's more recent, right? That's fairly recent that the where people are more driven towards, okay, how many followers I have, how many likes that I have, and how do I write so that I get these many likes and
Right.
comments. It switched from how do I write to explore my interest towards what do I write so that I get the right kind of attention from the
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely been that switch, but I would say it's probably like way earlier than 2019 that we saw the switch. Like I would say, I guess really the pre-likes days would be like the days of the blogs and stuff. So if you think like that, the 2000s blogs, there's
WordPress blogs for
exactly, because you couldn't really, I guess you would have details on like traffic and stuff. But really, I think the likes and this and impressions or so on is really kind of post Instagram, post TikTok and stuff, and that's when these metrics started mattering a lot more. But I agree with you. I think it's like monetize the opportunity to monetize is really a double-edged sword kind of situation. It's so great that yeah, it's so great. Now I think, okay, I feel like when I was growing up, the risk of like, oh, if you wanted to pursue an artistic path, you might not have a secure economic future is like a real risk. Whereas now I think, for a kid who's like 12, 13, who knows how to use the internet in the right ways and knows how to, garner attention, like I would feel a lot more comfortable telling the kid, okay, as long as you know XYZ, you can make this work. And so that's really great. But I also agree with you that, the flip side of it is probably, I think what one example in my space would be, I think a lot of the online writing that we see maybe has a has an element of salesiness or monetization or anything that you maybe most online writing that you write about like that you see especially in the email marketing space, or I guess by default marketing would have a marketing slant, but I think the internet in general is just flooded with writing that has maybe the goal of like converting you to buy something down the line.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And like you've really kind of like lived through this transition of like so many multitude of facets in this creator economy. I mean, you are a creator yourself. You are exploring your interest in by writing, like creating your own portfolio career, and you're also like working, helping other brands and other entrepreneurs and things like this. And I think it's like you said, there are pros and cons to technology. There are pros and cons to like social media. Where do you like fit in, or how do you keep that intention of, hey, I want to create to kind of explore my skills and talent, and I want to see how far I can stretch with the abilities that I have. And how do you manage that with this current trend of like, okay, we need more likes, more subscribers, more this, more that, and this constant sense of like, okay, I have to please another person so that I keep growing. How do you fit in, or how do you balance your work in between these two squads?
Okay, the honest answer is actually I don't really think about it. And I definitely don't
Okay.
think of myself as a creator at all. Like yeah, definitely not. And it feels a little bit to even say that. I think I would primarily say I've always wanted to I've always enjoyed writing.
Can I ask, how would you define your current role right now?
How would I define my current? So I'm actually in the midst of a job transition. But I would say right now I'm a writer researcher who's like interested in uh the intersection of media, tech, and business. And yeah, so far that has looked like building a portfolio career, working with media brands, working with researchers as well as authors. Um, so, but yeah, going back to your question of how do I balance it? I think for me, mainly, it's just like I really enjoy writing. I've been very shy about like sharing my I started my Substack January 2025, so kind of over a year ago. But definitely, I've always, been writing personal bits before that, but didn't really feel like, oh, I had the confidence to post anything online. And so for me, it's really been the main goal has been to um, dive deeper into ideas that I'm interested in and then see how far I can stretch it into making a piece of writing that I'm proud of. And beyond that, I don't think about it much more. And what I mean by that is like, I know, I think for my Substack, I've been fortunate to like, gain quite a few subscribers from some of the Substack notes that I've posted that have been spread quite widely. And I know that tactic works. But am I like proud of using, would I repeat that in order to gain more subscribers? Yeah, that's probably a strategic thing that I could do, but it's not necessarily something that gives me uh
The motivation or that's not the reason of motivation or drive.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
But that's a strategy. It's a strategy.
it is strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I do question, oh, maybe I should be doing that. I
Yeah.
should be doing that more. And I should have a cadence of like every week I have 2 notes or whatever, whatever metric.
By the way, that's not wrong, right? I mean, we are
Mm.
living in a time where we are like bombarded with like I mean, now at the moment, everyone is a creative. Everyone is like creating something.
Yeah.
And you need to build some sort of strategy. But because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, even this,
100%.
even like this podcast, for example, I'm not doing it for me to, okay, get all the lessons from you, get the most out of this conversation and then like go sleep. I am actually doing this in order to, for other people to listen and actually get the same value as me as well. So if I have to share this with other people, then I need a strategy to actually promote this accordingly and stuff. So strategy is valuable anywhere in any business, any type of work in general.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I would say that when I went into the creator space, I very much had the mindset of like, okay, the craft is all that matters. And like one of my biggest learnings from working with these guys is like, the craft is only 50% good if you can't freaking distribute it and nobody reads it, right? Like you can pour your heart and soul into a beautiful piece of artwork, but like if it doesn't get seen, um, is that quote unquote successful art or whatever you want to call it. So I agree with you, like thinking about the distribution is super important. I guess my point, like going back to your previous question of like how do I position myself, I think the honest answer is like I don't think about distribution enough. And the thing that really like keeps me excited and keeps me interested is really the former bit of like thinking about the ideas I'm interested in and how do I write it up in a way that I feel like is solid and good. But yeah, I would definitely love a part of my brain to be more interested in like the distribution and the strategies around that.
Yeah, but I feel like you're like really, in a way, I feel like you're like literally underplaying like your skills and talent by saying, you don't spend big because at least with the other creatives that you've worked with, like the other famous popular creatives that you worked with, I think this was still at the forefront, right? Okay, how do we strategize this better? How do we distribute this better? Which will work? How do I write a certain script so that sells better? So you do still have that I mean, I think you still have that wonderful skill. I mean, if you apply that within your own work or not, that's a different thing. But I think you still possess that skill, right? That's super valuable.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you for pointing that. I appreciate it. Okay, so maybe that's true. Maybe sometimes I overlook it. So I'm guessing like even when I write my Substack articles or something, like I kind of have a sense of like, oh, this title would work better than that. Like, oh, this title I have a sense that it would get more clicks than this one. So maybe kind of subconsciously, it definitely, these strategies do come into play. You're right. But in terms of like, okay, I must post, Tuesday, Thursday, whatever it might look like, that's sadly a little bit out of the window for me.
Yeah, but also what you're doing or how you are defining your own work, that's a very healthy approach, Ines. I think because once again, like going back to the same point, because when we talk about creating, we are creating it online and we can't escape looking what other people are doing, how like, how other people's content is performing and everything. And whether you like it or not, you're going to feel this pull of like, okay, I want to be as good, or I want to be like able to perform like that or something. And it takes a certain belief or the skill to separate and say, hey, let me just focus on my thing. Let me just like focus on like doing the shit, doing the work. Just focus on that. Because at the end of the day, that's the huge part to crack. Just produce good work. Just write good stuff, create good video. Then you can think about like the promoting, the distributing, and all these kind of things. Because I often, even now, fall into that that mental trap of like, or like, I should probably do this. I should probably do X, Y, Z. But I have to forcefully pull myself. No, first get the ABC right. That's the thing.
What are the XYZs for you right now, would you say?
It's like, where else can I promote this podcast? How creatively can I promote this? Do I have to like create a video? Because I also have to be very mindful of my time as well, right? I have like a 9 to 5 job, and then this podcast editing, hosting, distribution, it like takes time as well. And with the limited time, I bombard my mind with all the ways that I can do to like distribute or promote this work. But I feel like, at least in my opinion, my ABC is still doing a good job in the podcast, in while recording the episode, like getting the best value out of the person who is giving their time and things. And then even if I'm focusing on the promotion stuff, I should be very humble enough, like what is reasonable for me, given my time and energy and everything, what is reasonable for me, instead of just like aiming for something so high and then feeling like, I'm just not good at it. I guess I can't do that. But I think it's a skill. Learning to learning to peel things from the scratch is a skill, instead of just like looking at a creator who has like a millions of followers and saying, I want to do exactly what Ali Abdaal did. No, maybe Ali Abdaal did not start that way.
100%, or it doesn't have like the same, or you don't have the same resources as him.
Exactly.
I agree with you. Like, and even identifying what your ABCs and XYZs are, I think that's also a skill in and of itself, right? On figuring out, because some people might naturally be very good at the distribution bit and not be very good at the asking question bit, in which case, that's their A, and that's their X or whatever. And but yeah, no, I'm curious to hear, do you feel, so I think it also really depends on the goals. If I set myself, after I left, a full-time job back in May or last year, if I said to myself, okay, my goal in 2025 is to become a full-time writer and I want to make money from it, I think my focus would be a lot different. Then the strategy of like distributing would be super important. Like certain metrics would be super important, because I would know that, getting a certain subscriber base would be super correlated with whether there is a financially viable path to this becoming a full-time thing. But I knew quite early from the outset that if that were my goal, I knew from the outset that I would enjoy writing more if that weren't my livelihood. And in particular, if that weren't, if writing my own stuff weren't my livelihood, obviously there's writing in different guises. You could be a ghostwriter for somebody else and that's your main source of income, but you're not making money from your own stuff. And that was a decision like I made fairly early on. Obviously I had like aspirations of, one day maybe I can be an author and that would be my main income stream. Or one day I would be a, well-known XYZ and that would fund my lifestyle. But and maybe this is from my glimpse of the creator world. I knew quite early on that, okay, that I think that's actually not what I want. And I think that would maybe actually make the work less interesting. So yeah, I'm curious to hear, is that, because you've got your 9 to 5, this is one of your many side projects. Can you see a world where you would want to do this full time? Would that give you, do you think you would be, let me try to think about my question. I think my question is basically like, is your dream to make everything a full-time thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
At some point, I want to switch to doing something creative that is mine, that nobody else can take it away from me. And I am genuinely obsessed with building this podcast.
Okay.
Like genuinely, because it's as as a one person podcast, it's actually like not quite easy, because scouting for people, email, DM, follow-ups, hosting, recording, editing, distributing. It's actually quite a challenging stuff. But I would not complain, because I really love it. I really enjoy. I even enjoy the boring stuff, because it's yours. It's your baby. But at the same time, I really value my 9 to 5 job as well, because it removes the pressure of me wanting to monetize this at this moment. My focus right now is just to become a good podcaster, having to ask effective questions. I know my flaws. I mean, I am very self-critical, so I know my flaws. I want to become a good communicator, become a good podcaster. I want to get like, and I think marketing is like a big industry for sure. But given the access that we have with technology, there are things that I can do efficiently and effectively, which I see that I'm not doing it that well, or I'm not managing my time that effectively. So I want to be able to squeeze out my potential as much as I can with this before even I put the pressure of how do I like monetize this. I'm like, let my 9 to 5 take care of that. I'm in that place now. So it balances out, even though I do get frustrated with, I wish my 9 to 5 was only 3 days per week, so I could spend more time on my podcast or something like that.
But that could be the next step, right? That could be the next step, right? Like going down to 3 days, and if you have a bit more time.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Yeah. Sorry, a question just came to mind which I forgot now. Maybe it'll come back to me later. Was gonna ask you, what was I gonna ask you? It'll come back to me later.
Yeah, if it comes up, like you can stop me and tell me anytime. But in general, like, I don't hate my 9 to 5 job, because it gives me, like, it keeps me one foot on what's happening in the industry, in the tech industry. So why would I want to like let go as well? So my goal is not even at the moment or anytime in the near future, like, oh, I completely quit it. I would still, even if I end up quitting a 9 to 5, I would still find a way to keep my one foot at the IT industry somehow, as a freelancer or something, because
Sounds like what the thing, sorry to interrupt, sounds like the thing that's really important to you is like ownership. Is that fair to say? Because you kind of referred to, like this is the baby that you own. And I'm curious to hear, like, if the thing that you owned wasn't a podcast, but some other kind of creative medium, would you be equally um excited by it and engaged in it? Or do you think there's something in particular about the podcast medium that like makes it particularly your jam?
Yeah, I think this is particularly my jam, but at the same time, I feel like the podcasting, at least the way that I envision my podcast to go somewhere down the line, is not very limited to what I'm doing right now. I see a lot of possibilities to expand this in different horizons. For example, one of the things that I want to do this year, hopefully I build up the courage to do that, is actually offline events. I wanna host a guest, like literally like a direct guest sitting next to me, and I want to have like a live audience. How are people inside like a coffee shop or inside? Start with a small guest, right? And that is like one thing that I want to do. I also want to host like live events, not exactly with a guest, but that would actually bring together like common people, where they come and like discuss their ideas, and where, because these are the things that the things that I limitations that I see in myself. I was scared about telling other people what I'm doing. Hey, I have a podcast. I have this vision, and I want to do this. But then I recognize there should be other people like me, right, who have something in their mind, but they don't even have the guts to like talk about it. But maybe if I could create a space for them where whatever little or big idea that they have, hey, come and like share it with us. Let's see, maybe you can find someone who is interested that stuff. So there are like some ideas that I have with this thing, and there are also I also want to, because I also notice some skills in myself. I think I'm very good at ideation, execution, implementation. I probably suck at the moment, but again, I think it has to do with the time management and stuff. But I recognize that I'm good at ideation, whether I do it or not. I'm good at ideation. I feel like that is a skill that I can share with other people. Because sometimes my friends would come and tell me, "Hey, I'm doing this," and I would like immediately like somewhere down, it would like I could list them 10 ideas. Hey, how you can like expand this idea. And they were like, "Oh my god, you just like came up with that like so sudden, like out of nowhere, you are giving me this 10 ideas. And I think that's a good skill to like actually share. And I want to create all these little things within the everything playbook atmosphere.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. That sounds amazing that you have like so many ideas and like
Just need the
things
guts
to
to
like
do it.
it feels like you have the guts already. You're getting started, which is like the hardest thing, and like reaching out to people, sharing with people about it. But I resonate with, and I think it's also really important to know where you fall between, kind of visionary, big ideas person and like executor and integrator. And I think, knowing that you're more on this side, which is like an amazing, and I feel like a lot of creators lean on this side, being like the visionary, the idea person, and then translating it into actual actions and actual outcomes is like the challenging bit for them. And typically they get, somebody who can support in that capacity. So maybe that's something down the line you can consider.
Mm. I want to ask you, this might sound like a super basic question because this is actually, it's still fairly a new term for me that I'm trying to like learn. But I know there could be other people like me as well who are like, who do not have much clue about what this is. So what is a portfolio career?
Oh, okay. I feel like I'm actually not the best person to answer this question. And I would refer you to two people. So two people online who use this word quite a bit and who I've very luckily like connected with is a guy called Dexter Drang, who now actually has gone back into the tech space to work with a coding company called Multiplier. And Dexter was one of the first people that introduced me to the concept of a portfolio career. And at the time, I think Dexter was a CFO actually at a tech company, and did cool stuff at Dropbox and a couple of other like big tech companies. And a portfolio career, if I had to distill it, is if you think about like a standard portfolio, it displays different aspects of your work, right? So you're applying the same logic to a career. A conventional career, you would do one thing, you work for one company and you have one role in it, and you rise up the ladder of that role. A portfolio career might be on the other spectrum of that, where you use different skills for different companies, or it can be companies, organizations, independent entrepreneurs not independent, entrepreneurs who might need those skills. And, rather than tying yourself to one company, you might have different clients in a space, and you're using different skill sets for those different roles, is my understanding of it. And of course, there are people out there with a clearer definition. Another person to look at is actually Anna Mack, who has
Sana Mekazi, right? I
exactly.
just bumped into her work like a couple of weeks back. She has written a lot about
a lot on portfolio careers. Yes. Actually, I would. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I think it's similar to like what you just like explained. It's this ability to like, I think you have actually written an article about it as well, right? How to build a career that thrives alongside AI. Actually, where you write about, okay, like product management is like, it's a role, but within that role, there are like 5-10 skills. And you should kind of like be in a position to think how to really break down each skill, and how to like use that skill to like, to support some, like to basically help another company or another person or anything. And that's how you actually build a career. So instead of like defining yourself as like simply as a product manager or like a finance manager or something, okay, within that role, what are the skills that you have, and how like literally break down each of them, and because each of them can become a whole different career path in a way, or it can be a whole different thing. That's something that we don't like think about, because I was also like in the mindset, it's only after actually I reading your article, really, I'm not kidding. Only after reading that article, I saw my own job that way. Because everything, things like I know what is important for a product manager. Like, you should be able to communicate effectively with like multiple departments, with the design, tech, engineering team, etc. You should be able to like analyze, visualize a product, and like see down, like create a roadmap for it and everything. I always like box these things into as a product. Okay, this is a product manager's job.
Yes.
But hey, no, this thing that the
Yes.
fact that you're able to communicate with multiple different departments could be a whole other thing that you can like build
100%.
on top of, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I think that was also a big unlock for me. And in the economics literature, there's a big
Sorry to interrupt. Can I ask,
Yeah.
how did you actually learn that, or how did you actually, because that's a very smart way to break down the job that you're doing. How did you actually bump into that? How did you like actually run into this idea of, okay, hey, I can actually, there is this one job, and then I can actually, there are so many skills, and with each skill I can create a different career out of it. How did you run?
Yeah. Okay, so this is where my economics training really did me a solid. So in economics, there's a model called task-based model, which basically, makes this argument that, a job isn't we tend to think of a job as a title, right? Product manager, management consultant, investment banker, whatever you have. But, a job isn't that title, right? And a lot of us kind of, when you graduate from uni at 21, 22, you're in a mindset of chasing the title. Or a role job description, because it comes with a certain degree of prestige or recognition. But what is a doctor really? And this model basically argues that any job can be unbundled into into different tasks, and obviously with those tasks you need different skills to perform those tasks. And so yeah, that's how I stumbled across it. And then I guess, as the conversations around AI and the impact of AI on jobs uh, began to become more popular in online writing and popular debate and so on, I encountered that model more and more. And I think just like reflecting on it and talking more to people. And there was a conversation I had, quite a while now, where I forget exactly with who, but we were basically, asking ourselves, like, what is the skill difference, or what are the tasks difference between a radio host in the 1970s and a podcaster in the 2020s or 2010s, 2020s, right? In many ways, the skills that the radio host needs in the 1960s and 1970s um, is quite similar to what a podcaster does today, right? It's just that the platform has changed and the way we distribute the piece of content has changed. But if you boil that down into really simple terms, you got to be good with engaging with an audience, using your voice as a medium. If the radio host has some kind of, invite somebody to call in type of thing, you also got to be good at, asking questions to the public. And so that's a really good example where I feel like it's a common skill set, but the label that we put on those skill sets has completely changed because the world looks different and the technologies we have in those worlds are different and the platforms available are different. But the point being, kind of breaking the things down into tasks and skills are a good way to kind of think about, oh, what are the things I'm really interested in? What are the things I'm really good at? And then are there interesting ways I can like bundle these things up together and then package myself into you yourself and your skills are a product, right? And how can you offer this then to different organizations who might need that thing? And building up from that, I think that's where you get, opportunities for a portfolio career.
Yeah, right. Okay. So following up with that, I think this whole act of like, breaking up your role into different skills and learning how to like expand on those skills is not only for the IT tech industry, business industry right now. I think this is kind of a necessity for every industry at the moment, because there is kind of an existential risk. That feeling of like, oh my God, like what's going to happen with because I studied filmmaking, or I studied editing, or I studied photography, etc. And now because of this AI, it looks like my work is at like risk. So I feel like this thought process does not apply only for someone as an economics professor, or someone like me, like in the IT industry. I think it applies even for people within the creative industry as well. This might be a vague question, or it might be an ask for to provide some details on like, how does someone think that way about the skills that they have earned so far? It could be like any person. Like again, like I'm saying, like it could be like a filmmaker, software engineer, etc. Because I do speak to people, and they all speak to me like, wait, so everything that I studied so far is not going to be useful in like 2 years. And this is coming from people who are in the creative industry, by the way. So this dream that I had of like like creating like a short film, or like making a movie, or like becoming like an editor, now AI can do that. So what do I do? Like, what happens to my career? So how do you think these people should train themselves to break down their skills, and how do you think they should conduct themselves in an age of like this hyper AI space that we're living in?
Oh, that's an interesting. Actually, let's try it together. Let's break down one of them. But I think high level thoughts before we dive into the exercise of trying to break down. We can do like filmmaker, for example, since we both kind of had this interest in theater writing and whatnot. And I think for me, I kind of like thinking firstly in terms of a job description, because that's a really concrete thing that you would have seen. When you're applying for your job, you would probably seen a job listing, and it kind of lists like, key responsibilities of this role, da 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 da, and like nice to haves, da 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 da. And I think that's quite a nice starting point of like, I got this job because I can offer this employer these certain skills and these certain attributes, and I've been hired. I've been proven that somebody's paid me money to perform this task and have these skills. So that's a good starting point there. But obviously, I think that would be fairly limited, because you are, more than your job and the sum of these key responsibilities and nice to have that's been listed on this page. And then I would also like, dive into maybe quote unquote, softer things that might not be listed there. So in the example of like a PM, communicating with different departments and knowing how to use that, cross-disciplinary language, I would consider that a skill, right? So yeah, I would say starting there. So starting with the job description, expanding further a little bit more to think about things that are not captured by that, but also maybe touches on the stuff you do outside of work, and listing that on a page would be interesting. And then I think in addition to that, one thing that's super important, I feel, is to be like as specific as possible, and to really like drill down as much as possible. And what I mean by this is, let's take something like being a YouTuber, right? Okay, maybe a very like non-specific version of the skill would be has skills to make a YouTube video, has skills to make a good YouTube video. But that's a really, really freaking broad statement that can be broken down into so many different things. Has a camera presence, knows how to speak to a camera, knows how to craft a title hook and make people click, knows how to make a thumbnail, a bunch of stuff, right? And you are actually seeing roles come out of that breakdown, right? We have like agencies that just focus on helping you get the title thumbnail hook correct, right? And so that's an agency that is packaging, that has chosen 3 specific skills within this bucket of being a good YouTuber, and charging a shit ton of money to deliver those 3 skills. Another example is like a lot of people now, with YouTube channels hire an actor, right? So the actor has the skill of like having good camera presence and being able to act and convey a message on screen, but that actor might not have the ability to craft the right title thumbnail hook, or might not be able to write the YouTube script. So I think, yeah, so my third point being, whatever skill that you've already established in steps 1 and 2, try to dig that down a little bit more. And, when your skill set you've put down in 1 and 2 is communication, can you dive deeper into that? Like, what kind of communication? Is it written form? Is it, face to face? Is it, audio? Yeah, whatever it is. So, encouraging people to be as specific as possible would be kind of my third thing.
Wow, that is, I would have never thought about communication that way. For me, communication is communication. I would have
Right.
never.
What is communication to you? So if I were to say to you like, oh, Priyanka, you're really good at communicating, what would you say that means?
It depends on the context in which you're saying, because right now when we are in a podcast, if you say, hey Priyanka, you're good at communication, I would assume that you're saying based on like how I speak or like the way that I ask the questions or how I answer you. But I would have never, but I would not think that, okay, communication also means writing emails. It also means like writing your thoughts, your ideas into pen and paper, or like writing it on like WordPress, Substack, like whatever, food calls. For example, communication also means interviewing people.
Yes,
Communicate,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Communication also means joining in a presentation and just like exchanging ideas.
Yeah.
I would have never thought like that.
Yeah. I agree. It is interesting. And also the flip side, right? Communication can be like how you give bad feedback to somebody on a team, or how do you deal with an angry customer, right? So people on like call centers, which, is one of those industries that is really being disrupted by AI, like communication is an important skill, right? And so when you have a term like communication, that's not super informative if you find that, in an AI center, a lot of people's jobs are being eroded, but we're saying that their core skill is communicating and dealing with customers. And at the same time, we're saying that being a CEO and exec, one of the core skills is communicating, and their jobs are not being taken away, right? If there's like two overlapping skills, and we're say a hypothetical world, like the most important skill for a call center employee is communication, and for a CEO and exec is also communication. Like, how do we explain the difference in their outcomes? And so that's why I think being really specific is important, because obviously there are different kinds of communication that these guys are doing.
Yeah, Ines, that is super valuable. Like you have no idea, because a lot of us like defined by, hey, I'm a lawyer, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a product manager, I'm a professor, and then once we read the news that hey, this job is in under risk because of AI, we're like, oh my god, like what do we do now? But how many? Like I have not. I don't literally remember the last. I don't ever remember doing this, like taking out like a paper and like writing down what are the skills that I have, and like literally like breaking down and like analyzing myself. Maybe the only time I literally do that is when I try to send out resumes, like for whenever I'm looking for a job. But even that is like, because now we want the resumes to be lean, as lean as possible.
Yeah.
So we shrink it into like 4 to 5 points, like just like put them all together.
Yeah.
But almost we never like break down at all, break it down at all. But I think the places where we can thrive in this current AI age is those in betweens. Those things that AI is still not the master yet, or there is still there's use for it.
Yes.
Stuff.
Yeah. And another thing that I find really helpful doing is like forcing myself to think of examples. So if I write down, oh, I'm really good at written communication, like what is my example of that? And having a couple of like sub bullet points under that, as you're listing out your skills. And also asking yourself the question of like, which bits do you enjoy? Because I'm sure in your 9 to 5 as a product manager, there are some bits that you really, really love and some bits that you don't. And then asking yourself, oh, if I could wave a magic wand and invent version 2.0 of my product manager role in my current company, what bits would I add more of, and what bits would I take away from? For me, is kind of empowering as well, because it's saying to myself, oh, in order to kind of move my career in the direction that I would find more satisfying, it doesn't mean I need to, leave a very steady and a job. Maybe there are ways of kind of like job crafting and tailoring it in a way that better matches what I enjoy and what I'm good at.
Do you personally find it frustrating, or are you satisfied with the fact that we have to constantly reinvent, and we have to reinvent at a much faster pace than we did like 5 years or 6 years back? Because what is relevant today, so few of them will not be relevant in 6 months or in 1 year, maximum 1 year. So does that frustrate you, because you have found something you love, right? Writing. You found that, for example, it is something that you really love, and you wish that is the one thing that you could just like keep doing and exploring. But then you keep reading stuff like, wait, what I'm doing right now is not enough in order for me to like, I don't know, for your career to survive, or like economically to survive and everything. So you have to keep reinventing. Does that challenge excite you, or does it frustrate you, or is it somewhere in between?
A mix of both, but I would say on the whole, it excites me. I think my main thing is like, okay, this is just the reality and we got to learn to love it. Like if I'm being completely honest, day one of me in so I started working with some guys in the creator economy in 2021, right? The skills that I learned then, or if I entered, if that version of myself were to attempt to enter now, I just wouldn't get anywhere. And that's not because I'm an inferior version now. It's just because the world has changed. An example of this is when I went in 2021, we would use, there were 4 of us writers in the team. We would use, raw brain power to kind of think about the YouTube titles. Now there's like 100,000 AI assisted tools to help you brainstorm this in like 30 seconds, right? Wow. And I'm sure it's similar for you with the podcast, you input the transcript maybe to something and it can help you generate some ideas, right?
Yeah.
That just wasn't a feasible option, at least at the price point that we can get with, $20 a month or whatever software, whatever LLM you're using. And
So
similarly,
I would say like even like this one person podcast thing would not be super convenient for me if there was no AI. Because the thing that is going to elevate your voice and my voice and make it studio level is actually an AI. I have basically upload this thing, and or else the time that I have to spend editing that, like staring at the screen, editing for hours, like with the sound and stuff, it helps me honestly.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. But then, so the flip side of that is like the human person who was doing that job that you might have hired them for everything playbook is now not getting those job opportunities, right? Or not getting those, Upwork or Fiverr opportunities. And so, and it's not because that person sucks, it's like the world has just changed and technology has changed. And so, yeah, going back to your question of, is it frustrating or exciting? Yeah, I think maybe I don't like attach words or like attach sentiments to it, which and it's more kind of like, okay, this is the way it is now, and how do we deal with it, and how do we make the best of it? Because I think it's quite exciting that, oh, some of, in 2 years there will be job titles that we've never heard of. Because I guess even product manager is a fairly new title, right? Like what would you say, pre-2010s?
Yeah, I would say I think like it probably only like last 8 years or like 7 years it took real traction of like a product manager is like big thing.
Yeah. So that's cool, right? Yeah, that these opportunities keep on coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now with you've right now at the moment, are you working with other creators?
Yes, so I'm working with a few creator-led brands as well as with some authors. But yeah, as of late, I've really developed an interest in the space of AI policy and AI safety, and also been doing a bit of work there. And so that's a little bit more transitioning back to my original economics background.
Okay.
Yeah. So the ongoing theme of my career is a squiggly path. Yeah.
So with the very successful creators that you worked with, and you've contributed in building their career, their growth, and all those kind of things. So let's talk about like the role of discipline, confidence, consistency, and all these kind of things, right? So when you compare, when you see creators like who are like super successful, with whom you've closely partnered with, what do you think separates them from just another regular creator? If you when you see them, when you work with them, I'm like, wow, this is the reason why he or she is where they are right now, or this is the reason why they are able to build what they are building. Like when I see some creators, of course I'm not like trying to undermine the fact that they have resources to support. They have people like you, and like there are a lot of resources to actually support with like a lot of things. But there is also just as an individual, they have a certain skill, they have a certain way of like a vision that they have for their brand or whatever that they're doing, which kind of motivates you as well to work with them, right? Which makes you trust in their vision as well. So what is it that separates people like them from just like another common creator or something? Or what do you think that's something that we all could learn from people like them?
Okay, that's a really good question. Let's pin it down a little bit more. When you say creator, do you have in mind a particular format? Are you thinking, so the first thing that obviously came to mind is YouTubers, because that's the space I'm most I guess have most working experience in. But I guess, creators can be, people who are mainly on social media or like written form.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have someone in mind that
Yeah, for
um
example, let's say like Ali Abdaal, for example, he has published a
mhm.
book which you actively like
Mm,
contemplate.
yeah,
Videos is a huge thing. It's not just about like he has a fancy, nice equipment sort of thing.
yeah,
His scripts are like super like
yeah,
engaging and punchy and stuff. So his
yeah,
writing is like that good. To a point, you can sit through a 20-minute, 30-minute video of him just like talking
go,
about like one subject or like
yeah,
explaining multiple subject. And
yeah,
Ali Abdal as well, he actually started as a surgeon, as a doctor, right?
yeah,
And he
yeah,
decided to break free like this in this creative thing.
yeah,
And it's a very hard thing to like crack to like a bloom like that because
yeah,
like when I see Ali Abdal's work, he's very specific in everything that is being put out on Instagram or YouTube, or the way that
mhm,
his content is spoken is like
yeah,
it's not vague. There is nothing, you can't spot anything vague over there. You can't
yeah,
you can't spot any some, hey,
yeah.
he could have skipped that point. That point was
Right, right,
not even
right,
like
right.
needed.
Succinct.
Literally
Yeah, tight.
everything is
Yeah,
like precise, like
yeah,
a building block.
yeah.
So that is for, let's take him
Okay,
for
okay.
example.
Yeah, I think that's a good example because I think in general, places where you're gonna find a bigger kind of team are, probably video-based creators because that's just more resource intensive. And so that relates to your question of like, oh, how do they also get people on board? I do think like uh one core thing is like having and this might seem a little bit vague, but I feel like it's important for this person to really understand like their vision slash mission slash message that they're trying to convey as a creator. And sometimes, obviously this changes over time, right? But I think at the outset, this message, rather whether it's implicit or explicit, has to come through the stuff that you're creating. And I think for Ali, in the early days, it was studying content, and then it turned into productivity. And then now it's a little bit more about personal finance and financial freedom. But you can see that maybe the underlying theme there is,
Oh, I wasn't actually
yeah,
aware of this. So
yeah,
he actually started talking about content creation.
started studying when
Studying.
when he was a medical student in Cambridge. His first few YouTube videos, quite maybe even first 100, were about studying techniques aimed at medical students and like students in university, right? And then that transitioned into productivity, which was I think quite a seamless transition. Somebody in their early 20s who's really good at studying would make sense to make that content, right?
Right.
So kind of knowing what that, and sorry, my examples there really refer to the content buckets, but I would say the underlying message and theme for him is probably something along the lines of like, oh, you can build a life that you love through using these techniques around productivity, personal finance, et cetera, et cetera. And, things kind of relate back to that. I think if somebody were to jump around too much with their message or not know what that message is, it's hard to like create that momentum to draw people in.
Mm.
Um, I would say a second thing that is important is having quite a good balance between being relatable and accessible versus inspirational and aspirational. And I think someone like Ali is a good balance of this, right? He's like, you kind of want to have the vibe of like kind of a slightly older friend who will treat you to a coffee in a coffee shop, and that's the vibe I feel like he gives in a lot of his videos. And what I mean by this is like he's relatable in the sense that the language he uses on screen, I feel like is as though you're just chatting to a friend, a smart, intelligent, wise older friend.
Mm.
Um, but at the same time, there's an aspirational and inspirational element to it. He's like a Cambridge trained doctor. He, built this really successful business at quite a young age. And both of those elements combined, I think, uh, creates a, both relatable, but also like aspirational energy that I think is important. So yeah, and to be more specific, relatable means like you need to create stuff that the audience can see themselves in, right? Like they don't just want to hear about your stories. They want to be able to see themselves reflected in your stories. And then the aspirational element is important because, they want to watch your content in order to hopefully improve something in their lives, right? And you're demonstrating what that alternative version might look like. Um, and then I would say like the third thing is, a little bit more, random and a little bit more circumstantial. And yeah, Ali actually has a term and he calls it, your unfair advantage of, finding what are those things that are uniquely you and at the same time the market demands. So in his case, being a Cambridge trained doctor was one of those unfair advantages. People just are interested in what it's like to be a doctor training at Cambridge. And he knew how to tap into that, without being overly, obnoxious about this being his, background and so on. But at the same time, on the one hand, one can argue, he's worked so hard to get to this point where he is a Cambridge trained doctor. But at the same time, there are a lot of random facts about life that put some people in that position and some people not in that position. And so, I would say the third factor is really about like understanding, okay, what are those, unfair advantages I have at this moment, and coinciding with, the time and place that I'm creating in would get the attention and maybe get the interest that I'm looking for.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like looking at like hearing what you're saying. I think he must have spent a lot of time figuring out how to connect the dots, right? How to like transition from like studying content to then the productivity and then to finance and everything. Because it's not like a easy. I mean, yeah, it is connected, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it involves strategy. It involves a lot of figuring out, and it
Yeah.
involves a lot of figuring out. I mean, just doing this stuff, I spend a lot of time in my head of like, okay,
Yeah.
and everything. Imagine doing it at that scale and having that level of vision.
Yeah.
And being able to hire so many other creative and interesting people to like support your idea.
Yeah.
It takes a whole lot of self belief in what you have
Absolutely.
as a vision.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But having said that, I would also say like he's one of these people who's always like, you just got to go and do it. I think now me saying it in hindsight, it's easy to kind of connect the dots. It's like, oh, he started here and then he did this and then he did this. But I'm sure in the moment it's the mindset is more like, okay, this is what I'm doing at this point in time. I'm going to make these 10 videos that are related here. And then subsequently, those transitions would keep going. And yeah, I kind of feel like I had a taste of this as well, starting my Substack of like, obviously career and, nonlinear careers was a big part of what I was interested in because that was what I was going through. And at the same time, the feedback suggested that that was also what people was interested in, and like those two things combined led me to kind of like explore and dig a little bit deeper and say like, okay, what else can I explore here? So I think it's it's like impossible to plan out everything like, okay, this is what I'm going to do and these are the first 2 years of what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is like, okay, I've put enough thought into it, let me just throw it out there, do the best job I can, and then wait for the next round. Yeah, I'm sure this is something you've experienced.
Yeah, like something that I relate to it as well, especially when you're starting out. Whatever ideas that you have going on inside your head, just like put it out. Because as when it's inside my head, it's only inside my head. But once I put it out, it that is I see a whole different way of like building on top of it. But till it's not out, it's impossible for us. I'm sure that's the same for you as well. Only when you hit publish and you see a finished article and you go through it and you're like, hey, the next time I can build on something, I can pluck something out of what I've written and I can build on top of it.
Yes.
So, and I think that's the case for anything that we're doing. Till you have this stuff out, put the stuff out, the rest will it will make itself visible at the right time.
Yeah.
Right. But that assuming that I want everything figured out, I want A to Z completely planned out, and only then I'm going to take the step.
Yeah.
That's such a dangerous,
Impossible.
impossible.
Yeah. You won't put out anything.
Yeah, you won't put out anything at all. And I'm saying this because I've been there. Actually, tell like I
Yeah.
yeah, Christopher, just put it out. Just like put it out. Let's see, like, and also the internet is so surprising us all the time. We don't know what's going to hit, with what's going to resonate with people. The stuff that you did not even, you were so nonchalant about, and you just like put it out, might be the thing that people like actually get absorbed into.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a good point. Like the randomness of the internet, right? And it's a crazy space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you are working, like as an individual, when you are pursuing something, there are obviously like a lot of challenges that you have to overcome, a lot of confidence issues that you have to overcome. You build on top of it and stuff. But at the same time, when you work with like big creators, you also get the opportunity to have an exposure in spaces that you probably did not have previously, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like put in there. You're just like put in a room or put in a crowd where you were like, where I did not anticipate that this is where like I would be and stuff. Is there like anything now, when you growing up, and I like you probably had like a certain vision in your head, and then when you started working for people like Ali Abdaal, you were in rooms where you probably thought did not kind of like imagine. And how did you like handle that? Like, because there must be a lot of inner emotions like running inside, hey, do I have the confidence to face this kind of people? Do I have the confidence to like be in this room and stuff like that? Were there any surprising elements that happened that kind of created that sudden burst of growth of like this? There is a new character development of Ines Lee.
Wow, that's a really interesting.
And it's also only when we do uncomfortable stuff there is a character development. It's so painful, but then that is where the character development happens.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. So yeah, I'm sure there are definitely examples where I'm put in a situation where I'm, really privileged to meet certain people that I'm like, whoa, I've heard so much about you, or like listened to so many of your podcast interviews, and read so much of your stuff, and now whoa, here you are in flesh and bones. And like Ali's great because he has a very open door policy. So I kind of feel like and he also used to have a podcast. So if there was a well-known guest coming in, you know anyone in the team could come in the office that day to also meet the guest, and so on. So yeah, there have definitely been a lot of those moments. And I would say, by nature, I'm probably not somebody who does best in a group setting. I like, I much prefer, like smaller groups where I feel like a lot more comfortable to be myself, share my thoughts and so on. So I would definitely say I can remember environments where maybe it's a group setting and there's a person who everybody's trying to impress, and I would definitely probably lean towards the more quiet side in those settings. But looking back, it's not like I regret not speaking out much. It's more like, okay, that's kind of maybe by nature, the way I am. But at the same time, I think there are definitely other situations that I kind of I am kicking myself like, I could definitely reached out or at least followed up after those meetings to see if anything can come from those conversations. But yeah, no, your question is like, are there any surprising moments? Yeah, I'm struggling to think of any like at the top of my head, but I do remember that feeling of like, nervousness and cringe of, oh my gosh, I need to speak to XYZ now. Like, what do I say? How do I introduce myself? How do I not stumble on my words? So yeah, it's definitely, it was real, really exciting to be part of that journey.
You were just this was going to be my next question, because you were just telling about like how I wished I had like said hi to that person or sent a follow-up email or something like that. Could you share, or do you have what's your idea on networking, effective networking? How do you personally do networking? Like the other day, actually, someone who is actually working on creating a new CRM product, she actually reached out to me for like a research interview. Oh wow! Saying because I think the CRM product has something to do with collecting contacts actually. So she actually, after knowing that I'm doing podcasting, she actually wanted to know from me how I handle networking and things like this. Starting from like for example, mine is very basic. Everything is in Excel for me. How all the status and all these the names, the contacts, everything is in Excel. But I also like think the same. I mean, after of course, like after sometimes I'm like, 3 months later, after I've done a podcast, I would come across or read something or watch a movie that would remind me of something this person said. And I would like, should I tell them? Would it be cringe? Should I tell them that, hey, I read an article and that, this is something that we discussed?
Yeah.
I would feel, but but on my other side of my head is like do it, because this is a guest that was there on the podcast. You should still focus on building that relationship, because you will never know when you will bump into them again, and you don't. And so keep I think that like networking is actually, I think also it's super important right now, because with the given again economic climate and everything. One of my managers, she was telling me like a couple of weeks back, sending out resumes doesn't work out anymore. We need to be in their inbox. We need to like get inside the inbox and everything. So I was the question said like, what's your effective like networking style? Like, how do you keep in touch with people? How do you build relationships, work friendships and stuff?
Yeah. This is very much something that I think I'm still thinking about. And I feel like my thoughts on this has changed a bit. Okay, maybe let's take a step back. I feel like I've always been really allergic to the word networking. And it started when I was a PhD student, right? It was like the advice would be, guys, you need to go to this economics conference and make sure you network. Make sure you network. And I was like, what the frick does this mean? Yeah, like what does this mean, network at an economics conference? And obviously, like if I were to really dissect it, it means, speak to people that could potentially be co-authors, speak to people that you could potentially like collaborate with to write a grant application or like get data of some sort. So basically, network with the purpose of being productive, right? Network with the purpose of potentially having some kind of outcome, which in the academic setting usually meant some kind of publication. And that might mean, networking with a referee at a journal who might, like your paper a little bit more because they've been able to, see you discuss the paper in person before seeing it in paper being submitted. So I would say I probably didn't start off with the best understanding of the word networking. And I think gradually over time, my views on this have shifted because I feel like I've been a real beneficiary of people being generous in the creator space network. And now I try to approach it with a similar a logic. I think, a couple of things come to mind. One is like always trying to figure out like, okay, what is, rather than approaching it in an extractive way of like, oh, I need to get X, Y, Z from this, really approaching it from a spirit of like, okay, what are the ways that I can be helpful to this person first, right? And thinking about, okay, what is the way I can make it generative rather than extractive is, I think, like one of the core things for me. Number two, going back to your question of like, oh, will this be cringe? I always try to ask, like, if anyone like interests me or I feel like, oh, they're doing interesting work, I always ask like, okay, if I were in their positions, would I want to receive the thing that I'm about to send them? And usually, like 99% of the times, it would be yes. And 90% of these people might not even see that message, but the question of like, would they like to receive it? I think is enough for me to send the message and to take that step of like hitting send, writing it up and hitting send. And then I would say the third bit, and this bit I'm not very good at, is to try to make it a consistent thing. So like one thing I would love to do is actually just like be better at DMing people on Substack and like doing that every month, and I feel like I had a couple of good months where I was, quite good at reaching out to, strangers, and it led to really, lovely discussions and some in-person meetups, which is such a joy. But in a busier time at work, that kind of drops off. But I do think there's something about like being consistent with like making sure you're reaching out to, X number of people that you've read and you find interest in, or reaching out to people who have commented on your work and just to say, hey, appreciate you being here, because I genuinely really feel that, of like, oh, thank you guys. And yeah, and I think just the overall philosophy actually right now of networking is like, hey, I want to make more friends. It's like, hey, can this person become a friend? Is the approach. Is it similar to kind of making friends rather than how do I meet this person in order to get XYZ outcome?
Yeah. And also I think you got to figure out some sort of value in it, both the sides, or like at least some sort of like slight purpose at least of like doing it. Because I think if you are doing it for absolutely no reason, but just to like hit people up, I think it would exhaust you as well, because it would exhaust you. You would that purpose would that intention would soon dry out. But if you have like a solid, okay, this is exactly the reason why I want to get in touch with so and so person, then I think the drive is kind of like always it's easy to sustain the drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, because I feel like, okay, all of the stuff I just said is very much coming from the mindset of somebody who's not necessarily networking in order to land, business deals. But I would say, for somebody who is, networking with the purpose of, say, like getting clients or, generating leads or whatever, that approach would probably slightly be, different and be a little bit more outcome oriented. But I would still say that approaching it with the spirit of like, okay, how do I make this as generative for the other person? How do I make it, as reciprocal as possible is still like a good way to start, even if you have a, business objective in mind.
I'm sure. And I think it's always, who knows, 1 out of 10 chances you might get on their radar and they'll be like, oh, they like, he or she pinged me and stuff. Actually, sometimes, very occasionally, I do cold DM people, like some scientist, famous, and I for sure know they might not see my email, or their assistant will see it and just like put it in the trash. I'm saying like, hey, I have read your paper and I really like.
Didn't you? Okay.
Really? Once in a while, I do it, but I just do it for the fun of it. Actually,
I love that.
if they reply, let them reply. But if they don't reply, I still see it as a practice for me to get comfortable with it. I want to get comfortable with it, because I'm not usually comfortable to send, for example, like you an email. I think for weeks, should I send a DM? Should I send an email?
Yeah. And I'm so glad you did. Like, I'm so glad we're on this podcast call. Right? Like, which is crazy.
And then I have to like really drive my point of insanity. Like, no, just like fucking like do it. Just send the email.
Yeah.
But like, if but there are people in our radar who are like just so high up, like scientists or like a lot of like the researchers, etc., who very likely might not get back to me, but I still like write with them, just appreciating the work, because I would think, hey, who would not like reading an email like this?
Praising them. Exactly.
Anybody would like reading an email.
I just had an idea. You know how people do admin parties nowadays? Have you heard this term, admin party? Okay, it's just a random block in your calendar where you do all your life admin related things. It could be like, I don't know, booking your dentist appointment, or, renewing your car insurance or whatever. So you do all like the life admin stuff. So there's this term, admin party. Well, Ali used to use it quite a lot as well. But I kind of feel like, the thing we're talking about is kind of a DMing party, or like cold outreach party of like, okay, within this hour, how many people can I identify that I just want to reach out? Or what do you call it? Maybe not a code outreach party, but like a thank you party, right? Within this hour, how many people can I reach out to like send a note of appreciation of, hey, I read this thing by you, and it really impacted the way I think about XYZ. And it's like, costs us maybe, 5-10 minutes within an hour, but could probably really be quite meaningful to the other person and could lead to a conversation.
And also when you very well know this person had some sort of an impact in your life, directly or indirectly. Directly could be a colleague who has worked with you, or like some of a student who studied with you, or indirectly like someone who wrote a research paper like 10 years, 20 years back, and you just bumped into it and it gave you a whole different perspective on things or something. That's a really good idea. I'm going to note it to put it in my calendar. Like,
I'm going to try to do this appreciation party, appreciation writing party, or something like that.
Like just a couple, like for the last 2 months, I have been telling one of my friends, because I've always had very good bosses, like my career.
Very lucky.
And I've not been in touch with them since then, basically. Like after the internship, I move on to the next one, then I move on to the next job, and then I move on to the next project. I've never been in touch with them. It would literally take like 5-10 minutes to say, hey, I still remember you, like you whatever you taught me made like a huge impact in my life. I mean, we talk about DMing people who are not in our network, but we should first do it with people within our network.
100%. 100%. Okay, I love that. Yes, 100%. So I recently did this with my PhD supervisor because I had to get in touch about something. So, the last time I spoke to him was probably in 2020 because that's when I graduated from the PhD. But yeah, and it's so nice, just kind of like, how are the kids doing? And, just, really simple things. But that's a really good point. Like starting with people within your network, you're so right. There's an element of networking that's really about, nurturing a relationship, preserving a relationship. And sometimes maybe that's like even way more valuable than new relationships that are weaker. Not saying that that's less important, but I like the thinking of, hey, starting with the people you already know. And bosses and good managers, honestly, that's,
Man,
important. Really important.
also rare. How many people get to say that, right? Yeah, I've always had bosses who I'm not kidding. I've always had bosses who were very determined in pushing me forward.
Wow.
Like they were like, okay, how do I push this girl forward to the next step? I don't know how many people get to say that.
Yeah, we should say that
Like,
to them in the
yeah.
letter. I was just reflecting, I'm one of the lucky people who had a boss who
Yeah.
did XYZ.
Even if it's one person,
Yeah.
who really had that core intention of, okay, I have to get Ines or Priyanka to the next stage. I really have to push her for this career or this job or this course or like whatever.
Yeah.
They had that intention, right? Because it's honestly a rarity. How many times we come across, because everyone is like busy packing up their lives and figuring out like what's going on next.
Yeah.
We've because I think because also I think we experienced a different timeline when people had time like that, who had a time to invest on another person's group or something like that. Now we are so busy figuring out our own, because
Our own shit.
and if it's, we have reached that stage, right? Maybe I think we are in the place where we have to support the.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point of like, how can you do that for another person? I agree. Do these your bosses, is there a correlation between like female and male bosses, or
Like both?
both? Okay, and okay, that's really lucky.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very lucky.
Yeah.
Both, and also from different cultures as well. Like a couple of them from India, a couple of them here, like from Germany, a couple of them were Italians.
Okay.
Like I had like one Italian boss when I first joined Accenture. Like he pushed me in order to do a good job so bad. It felt very aggressive. Like me and him would sit till 10 p.m. at night in the office, and he would actually sit next to me teaching everything. How to literally dissect a website like a backend, and how to actually check all the logs, the error logs, how to fix things myself. Back then, I would feel like, oh my God, this guy is torturing me. But if it's because of him, I was able to really stand out in my career, in my job. That gave me the confidence to train 6 other people. And
That's amazing.
also, I think, a lot of people that we see as like, oh, this so and so person was very good to me, or like they really supported me, will not feel, it might not look very direct at that moment. It might look actually quite the opposite at the moment.
Oh, interesting.
It might be the kind of person who's really expecting like a lot from you, which might feel like a pain at the moment. But 2 years down the line, it would be like, it's only because he pushed me that much. I'm now able to train like 10 people. I'm able to manage that many people. I'm able to check out. I'm able to do a job that 2 people can do, that I'm able to like do that. So
Yeah.
it's things like this.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Of like, oh, what are the secret strictness? The strictness. When does that come back to like actually be a thing that makes you?
I'm sure, like we have people in that category as well. It's always not the nicest ones, but there's also a little bit of like the certain characters who just like come into your life and they're like, yeah, there are that like this, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a really good thing. I think, yeah, I mean, sorry, like what we were saying, like just like a few minutes back, I think there was a time when people they had the space to invest in other people's life and career. I was becoming a little.
How do we get that back? Like, how do we get that back? Where like people just have more,
I think that is why we need to sort of get more offline, more of AI, more of tech, and I don't know. Do you? I think I mean in Substack, do you know this writer Freya India?
I've heard of her. Yes, 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 yes.
She
I've read a few
actually
pieces.
writes
Yeah.
a lot about keep maintaining your this humanness and humanity in the time of like AI and technology, because a lot is happening, right? Like now there are AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends,
Yes.
and now if you go to Facebook,
That's
there is
terrifying.
it's terrifying. It's terrifying, and kids use these applications and stuff. A lot of people end up forever lonely,
Yeah.
dependent on AI to kind of like satisfy them, and this AI is not even like a real person basically, and it's kind of like removing them more and more away from actual human communication and human contact, and that increases the anxiety level, that increases the social skills, depression, everything. And how long can you keep replace that with an AI girlfriend or a boyfriend? It's
Yeah.
ruining your life. So basically, she brings a lot of these topics into attention in Substack and stuff. Recently,
Right.
she wrote an article just last month saying she wrote an article about how to be a human, how to go back to being a human. And
Okay.
she was actually writing about have arguments with friends, have fight
Oh.
with your parents, move out of your house, move back into your house, call your mom, call your dad, fight with your boyfriend, cry with your girlfriends. Like she was
Yes.
basically she
Yes.
was listing
Yeah.
down the most basic stuff.
Yes.
Like in my mind, I thought,
Yeah.
wait, have we really reached a point where you have to remind us these things? I mean, what you're writing is like so basic. Have we really reached a point where you have to write an art Substack article
Right.
talking about like the basic human emotions? And then you know what? I then after a few days I realized, maybe we have. I think
Was her point that we are so trained to be frictionless? Like, is she saying like have an argument because the world of the online world just basically caters to us and we don't need to deal with
I
any shit?
think the online
Point.
world has basically catered to like sort of like a neoliberalism culture. It's like
Okay.
this person is you don't have to talk to this person. This person is toxic. Yeah, just like
I
go
see.
go back
Yeah.
and like just create content for a bunch of people who personally don't literally give like a shit about you
Yeah.
at a certain level. Like, and I think it's pushing sort of a culture like you don't have to tolerate any discomfort, but that is not
Yes.
the way to live.
Yeah.
Discomfort, you need,
Yeah.
like just like we spoke like some minutes back,
Yeah.
you need discomfort. You
Yeah.
need to feel the pain of shame, guilt, of like feeling uncomfortable, of this
Yeah.
feeling of like, hey, Ines, you are saying something and I don't have a counter argument for
Yeah.
it and I lose. I need to be able to deal with it. I
Yeah.
need to be able to deal with that feeling
Yeah.
of like, hey, Ines knows better. She knows.
Would you say that you're a people pleaser at heart? Like, are you a confrontational person?
Oh, I'm not confrontational.
Okay, I was gonna say, oh, don't tell me because I would guess because I'm the same. I think like just I don't know whether it's our upbringing or like I think women in general as well. I would say very gross generalization. I feel like the women in my life are definitely like less confrontational than the men in my life, and maybe a little bit more leaning towards like wanting everybody to be happy, and as a result, I think as you're saying, added to the fact that we don't need to deal with discomfort, et cetera, et cetera. We're also, if you also have a personality where you prefer things to be a little bit calmer and non-confrontational, that's like a double effect there.
Yeah. But the point is that I think more than ever before, there is a need for us to build these skills. Because if you do not build the skills of like going out and facing the harsh world like face to face,
Yeah.
there is going to be technology in between saying that, hey, I'll take care of you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that is the reason why we have this whole culture of AI boyfriends, girlfriends right now.
Yeah.
Because people at some point, the social media applications at some point really pushed this idea of like, hey, be alone. It's okay, be alone.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
replace that with a swipe culture, Bumble,
Yeah.
Tinder, this and everything. Where now, I mean, I'm sure like you have probably experienced this time where people really used to put effort on each other. Like even if you're angry with me or I'm angry with you, that
Yeah.
connection meant something. The friendship meant something.
Yeah.
So I want to put an effort on you. I want to put a genuine effort on you
Yeah.
because I want to keep that person in my life. But
Yeah.
now we are in a society where it's all swipe culture. If Iness is not making the effort, move to the next. Okay,
Right.
it's not okay. Move to the next. Move to
Yeah.
the next. So we've lost that ability to feel deeply something. But isn't that part of like being human? If we don't do that, I'm not saying hey like feel deeply. go cry.
Yeah.
That is not what I'm pushing.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that, but if you slowly step away from that, AI is going to come in between. Then we can't sit and complain that, oh, AI is taking over our jobs, AI is taking over this, AI taking over the. We talk about like, are we in a matrix? Are we in a simulation? We are actively contributing to that matrix. We're actively like encouraging that matrix by becoming more and more divided. Like it's all these things about like left and right and this and that and everything. It's just I mean, if we are all united, if we are all like, hey Ines, whatever your problem is, let's like talk and like let's like keep it within us, let's like still move forward with the idea that we still want to like continue our friendship.
Yeah.
If that is the case, people who run the world would not have a way of like working with us, with dealing with us. But if they kind of create the ideas that if Ines doesn't agree with Priyanka and the other way around, both of them have to like just, it's better that you guys go separate ways. That is when it becomes easier for them to divide and conquer. So I feel like we complain about like this AI hype and like, look what AI is doing for us, look how AI is taking over this, which is all valid. But I think knowingly or unknowingly, we are contributing to that this world that we are.
I hear what you're saying. Like there's scope for us to choose with how to interact with these technologies. And yeah, your point, and I guess what you're saying with Freya India's articles is like, oh, we're actively taking the lazy route, right? We're actively taking the lazy route. Yeah. Another thing I've been thinking about, kind of like related to this, but also distinct, is I feel like in the past 10 years, like maybe past 5 years, we've just gotten really good at measuring stuff. Like, your Apple Watch can give you a perfect, sleep score, and your HRV score, and your, Aura Ring gives you XYZ. And people are like, doing relationship reviews, Notion templates, and like your mood tracker, and like all of these metrics and like products that help you supposedly like optimize and track and measure things that are there important to you. But I also, and I think when this wave started happening, I kind of thought, oh, that's great. Okay, we can see, how you're doing on XYZ. And I feel like I've done a little bit of a 180 on this recently. And I think similar to what you were saying of like, um, uh, letting the tech kind of like lead our lives. I think sometimes there's a risk of like, we're focusing so much on these like, external metrics on a dashboard that we kind of like don't realize how we feel inside. And we're kind of like end up optimizing for the wrong thing. And really the things that, lead to deeper connection with yourself and with other people are kind of things that probably can't be measured on a dashboard or like by your Whoop score or by, whatever Notion template that you're building. And but yeah, all of these, conveniences and these advances in technology kind of encourage us to kind of like, lose that sense of touch. Yeah. With your inner world, right?
Yeah. But I think that is how smart the like the Silicon Valley is in general, like people who like develop these products, because the way the Instagram or Facebook came itself, it was the way that it was sold to us is that, hey, now you can share your work online. So that is such an exciting part, right? Now you can, instead of like just like keeping it within your city or your country or within your small neighborhood, now you can put the work that you've created, your photograph or your article, and the whole world can read it, which is great. So it welcomes you. You feel welcomed into that particular world. Slowly, that moves on to whatever you write. Now it is being judged by the people whose face you've not even seen, whose lives you will know nothing about, and they will have no idea about your lives. So they will start commenting on like, hey, what you said was wrong. To a certain degree, it's nice. It's kind if when you go in a debate mode, when you kind of like have an open-minded communication in the comment section, which then it is good. But now, but then it also, but the majority of social media, what's going on right now is that everyone feels like they have access to like judge you, critique you, to ridicule you, because you don't fit their idea of what they believe, whatever it is. Of any particular topic, you don't have the same idea that they believe in. So now that you're wrong, you're a stupid person, you're a dumb person, you're an evil person, like that. So soon then from the comment section, I think soon now it moved to like where people like who are behind the screen, like who wants to create, we have this fear of like creating or fear of judgment. Or if I say something or if I put out something, what if somebody else doesn't like me, and what if my Instagram account or my Substack becomes completely empty because I just bothered a bunch of people. Then now we are then it so it's kind of like it's the same with, like with Instagram as well. Like Instagram was like very organic. Now it's mostly like it's an ad based platform, right? People are like now selling stuff. It mostly looks like an e-commerce platform right now.
Right.
By tapping it, you can buy a shoe. This like whatever the creator is like trying to sell you and stuff.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel it kind of gives you an illusion that hey, we are giving you the opportunity to do all these kind of things. But the reality is that we are pulling you into our world, our vision, whatever we think that the entire world should operate in a content creation space. Stuff like this bothers me.
Yeah. No, I think added to that as well, like there's this implicit, I feel like as, as more and more people are putting stuff online, as a consumer, you think like, oh, by sharing their thoughts online, they are like inviting criticism, and they're implicitly signing up for whatever judgment and comments that they might get, positive or negative. And so then that invites that kind of like division, and and it can be good or bad, right? As you're saying, right? There's definitely healthy debate that happen as a result of somebody sharing their views, but also a bunch of toxic stuff that can.
I mean, I think
right?
there's like a pros and cons to. Definitely, there's pros and cons to it, and I think we gotta be a bit mindful and have the awareness to kind of like have a balance between it, not to fall too far into like any side, basically. Or else like I think that's the thing. Social media, it's because social media is not just now about sharing your creativity. It's not about just sharing, hey, this is the poetry that I've written, or this is the photograph that I've clicked. It's also about sharing your opinion about almost every single little thing that is going on in the world right now, from the bottom of from the sky to like the deep ocean, like everything. It's a page about like people are sharing ideas and opinions and stuff. And it also gives an illusion that once you have like tens of thousands of likes, your opinion matters. Or that your opinion is going to change the world. And hey, that's a good feeling, right? When I see 100 people agreeing with a political opinion or any kind of opinion that I have about Sam Altman or Elon Musk, it gives a good feeling for me to go a little bit more harder into it.
Yeah.
A little bit. So the time that I invest into tech and the time that I invest into the people who I will probably never meet increases. And the time that I actually have to spend with my friend or my flatmate or calling my parents, who they are probably the only ones who care, that kind of reduces. Because I was thinking like the Freya India's article, it felt like, oh, like initially I was like, oh, what the hell, what are you reminding us all these basic things for? But then I'm like, you know what, she's right.
It's pretty deep.
It is totally like a valid reminder.
It out. Send it to me.
I will email you that article. Where you read it, it's like, wait, what? We know this stuff. Why are you writing about it?
Sometimes you need a reminder of the things you know. Right?
That's scary. The fact that we need a reminder of like who we should be as a species. That's where like it's. Have you heard of this quote? There's this famous quote: "Human beings are the sex organs of the machine."
No, I haven't heard of that. No.
Yeah, it's about some philosopher or like a AI developer. It's like super old actually.
Okay.
There is this quote like human beings are the sex organs of the machine world. It sort of looks like that, right?
Interesting.
Sort of feels like that.
Yeah.
I just saw like a post a couple of days back. Now you can actually have AI robots delivered to your home for like a price of a mini car or something, or like a minivan or something. You can have an AI robot like delivered to your place.
Shit. Yeah.
This stuff is like a bit scary. But Ines, like where do you see yourself like going in career? Like where do you see yourself like going around? Like because just like the way you asked me the question, like, hey, do you see this podcast doing something as like a full-time stuff or like somewhere down the line? Like what is a vision that you have for yourself?
Right. So as I might have mentioned slightly earlier on, I've been really interested and motivated by the whole space of AI safety and policy recently. So, as like many of us know, AI is going to be like the biggest transformative tech of this decade. And so yeah, I'm exploring my next career in that space. And then on so a bit of another, maybe I wouldn't say 180, but a bit of a 90-degree shift again. And so yeah, I'm really excited to, think about problems there, think about ways I could contribute. And the reason for that switch, I think, I went into economics and wanted to do, research there with the hope that hopefully, I could contribute to certain policies that might, have a good societal impact. And I, in recent years have had an itch, to do that a bit more. And that does mean, leaving the media and like content and communication space a little bit to do that. So that's my next step. And then in terms of like the writing side of things, yeah, I'm not sure. I think what I want to do is kind of, learn as much as I can in this new chapter, a new professional chapter. And then whatever kind of like interesting mindsets, lessons, stories I pick up along the way, I want to be able to share that on my Substack as well. And I must admit, like my publishing cadence this year definitely is not as consistent as it was in the past. And I do feel maybe it's partly due to my bar for like what I consider good has also risen, but also at the same time, I feel like I need to really like live and experience things before I feel like, oh, there's something interesting to write about. So yeah, on the writing side, I would just say, the main goal is to, yeah, keep learning stuff, keep living. And then if and when there are interesting things I feel like are worthy to, reflect on, share and write up, then that's what I want to continue to do.
What is your writing process like? Do you like go directly on like the app, and then you like start writing, and then you kind of like have multiple drafts or like versions of it, and then you take a couple of days? How does it work?
Yeah. Oh, so usually it would be like if there's an idea that I've been thinking about for a while and it just, comes up, maybe, a couple times or, over a couple weeks or even sometimes a couple months, I know that, okay, there's something like niggling there. I need to like get it down. So I journal quite a bit. And usually when I start, a piece, it's literally like pen on paper, just to scribble a couple of thoughts. And because I feel like that's like my most unconstrained bit, like I usually do it in the morning. And the process, varies obviously like depending on the piece, but usually it's definitely pen on paper first. And then I put everything on like an Apple Notes uh, note. And I would just keep on adding to that note. And sometimes, I have an idea for like an opening line or, a reference that I can think of that's related to it. And I'll just dump everything into that Apple Note. And then when I feel like that Apple Note has maybe like 50, 60% of the core idea, I might then put it onto a Google Doc. And at that point, I might start engaging with like Claude or ChatGPT to like flesh out a few more ideas, get it to give me feedback on like the structure, get it to help me check whether like those references that I thought of are actually legit. And yeah, getting it to be a bit of a structural editor for me at that point.
Do
And
you
then yeah,
ever fall into the trap of like thinking, does someone else like what I'm writing?
I think that happens fairly early on. So I have to say, I ditch a lot of stuff. So sometimes I'll write out a whole, like, 2,000, 3,000 word article. And I feel like, actually, no, I don't think it will resonate. But I've gotten what I needed to from the process of writing it. I've learned, I've spent those however many hours and I've still gained something from that process. But I just don't think it's worth um publishing it because I feel like, and I could be wrong, right? That's just my hunch of like, I don't think this will really land from what I know about the Substack audience right now. But in terms of like the very early stages of me like finding this idea interesting and wanting to explore it, that I at that stage I don't really think about it. It's really kind of towards the tail end. And maybe that's something I should change because then by then you've invested quite a bit. But I think because I'm not writing with the explicit purpose of building a big audience or making money directly from the writing,
Yeah.
um, that gives me a little bit more flexibility to kind of just, you know, follow what I feel like is interesting. And only in the final stage, I guess it's a very kind of, aesthetic rather than a commercial decision to not publish something that I've written. But yeah, that happens, I think, more than I would like to admit, and hopefully that decreases over time. But yeah, I would say I don't, on the whole, don't think too much until the end of like how will this land? And generally, my policy is like, if I feel like this article has the opportunity to at least help one person, then let me just put it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually that's a very good thing. Like because you get to the end and then you make the decision, hey, do you want to share this out or not? Or if you've absorbed the lesson that you wanted to learn, then it's all fine, right?
Yeah.
I have the problem where just even before I finish the first line of the article, I already start thinking about, will this resonate with anybody? Will anybody care? Will anybody like? And I don't even get past the first line. But this is also something like just like a recent revelation that I had. Like, hey, I had to like again. This is something that I have to train myself. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you get better at writing. So I'm in that phase right now. Whatever it is that I'm doing, I want to get better at it first.
Yeah.
So I think you're on the second half of it where you are confident that you're good at you have the good conviction of your idea. You are good at what you're doing, and then you measure. Okay, is there like value to it or something? I am right now still in the process of like just getting better at whatever the craft that I am in.
Yeah.
And when I am at this stage, it is reckless or like it's stupid for me to think about what somebody else would think. Because I think at the moment my focus should be just to be able to do a good job, not about like what anybody else will think. Because if I keep doing that, I would never even get good at whatever it is that I'm trying to do.
I agree. I agree. And like, what is good anyway, right? Like it's also it's a part of the process as well. It's also you figuring out what you enjoy writing about, what,
Yeah.
your voice, whatever voice means, sounds like on paper, all of those things. And it's an uncomfortable process of like putting pen to paper. And I would actually really encourage, the first couple of things you write, just say to yourself, I'm not going to this is literally just me writing for myself. And then once you have a backlog and you kind of feel like, oh, you revisit some of the old stuff and you're happy with it, assuming what you're writing is not super time specific in terms of publishing requirements. I've really benefited from that of like, oh, let me just see if I have the stamina to, write 5 of these in 2 months or whatever time frame you put yourself. And if I'm happy with that, then let me, start publishing and go from there.
Yeah, I've heard actually a couple of good writers talk about or write about what you just said as well. Till they get to the end of exploring whatever it is, the idea that they have in their mind, they don't think about like the audience. They don't think about it's only once they've reached the end of they've completely squeezed out every idea that they have in their head. Then they think about, okay, should I hit publish, not hit publish, or whatever. But they've had their own space, like to explore, to kind of like dig deep into their mind and stuff.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
valuable.
Yeah, I think that's the most sustainable bit to kind of really, the writing practice is kind of for yourself. And then if you decide, oh, this can help somebody else, then, tweak it however you need it to in order to share it with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what, Ines? I'm taking. I'll just ask like one more question and then
Absolutely.
and then I will stop. I know I'm taking more time.
No.
One thing I had in my mind is that how we talk about how a lot of stuff about like just the human tendencies about like being able to communicate with people, have conversations like this or like direct conversations and everything.
Yeah.
It sort of feels all like, like normal relationships, friendships, that the stuff that you fight for, it feels like it's under threat because of the rise of AI. But I think there will also come a time when these things take, will kind of, I'm not saying it will come back to power, but it will become so rare that it would actually mean a lot at some, it will go back to having a lot of meaning in it, because I think there will be people with common
Like really
sense,
craving that.
who will be craving that and who will think, hey, this is not for me.
Yeah.
We've gone like too far. Now I want to go back to my basics.
Yeah.
And so that would become like it would become like it's sort of like carving out a culture that is what we were known for, but it would be sort of like restarting that culture all over again.
Oh, I love that.
Scratch.
Yeah.
Sort of like that. Because I think it will come, but I think that will take time for but before that, I think we do see like a lot of AI evolution and like AI take over of this. And it's confusing. Like I can't predict anything. Like can you like?
Yeah, I think nobody can predict anything. And like, if
Nobody can,
anybody says they can, like, be skeptical. But I do agree with you that like things come in swings, right? It's like after COVID, after, after, during COVID, it's like, oh my God, great, we can host events online, and we can have a Zoom room with 100 participants, whatever. And then I feel like people really crave, exactly as you're saying, like these offline experiences. How can we meet people in the flesh rather just on the screen? And then I think, similar to what you're saying with like, in London, at least, there are a couple of new kind of social apps. They're not exactly dating apps, but they're definitely like apps and platforms that are engineered to help people meet in person. And I feel like those have like taken off a little bit. Like Time Left, have you heard of, those organizations that help you like, platforms that help you match with people with similar interests and like host a dinner for you. So I definitely see what you're saying, like, and that's kind of like reflected both in the workplace and in the social place of people craving that in-person element a lot more.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I don't have too much direct experience or evidence with like what it's like being a teenager or an early 20-year-old. I have heard of early 20-year-olds, speaking about AI companions and so on, but I don't have any, direct experience, at least within my friendship groups, who are very, more millennial, way more millennial. I think they're still really really value the in-person stuff. So, and I've been lucky to be within that group.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, but
Like likewise, I feel like I suddenly the last 1 year or something, I have maybe it's also like this whole way of like getting older probably. I have this very deep connection with people. I've always had that, but then I felt like during COVID or somewhere in between, I lost that. And then now I see the world the way that it is, and I see there are some things that I like, some things that I don't like the way that it is going. And I feel this innate desire to protect my humanness, or like the way that I am, because there are like some things you probably appreciate about you, right? How deeply you're able to love yourself, or how deeply you're able to receive that emotion back. There are like little like physical interaction or emotional interactions that we grew up with, because I'm a millennial as well. I remember my 20s, my teens, very different than what we are like experiencing like right now. And I think now those emotions have heightened for me personally a bit. I'm like literally like craving. I'm like I've reached a point where I don't care. I'm not saying this in a selfish sense, because I'm saying this from a point of view that I'm very well aware we can scream a lot of things online the way that we want, but there isn't a lot you can do with certain things that's going on in the world right now. And that makes me very protective of the relationships that I have around me, because I feel like that has increased my protective senses. I want to protect my crowd, my people, like that, and not engage in stuff which I have a strong feeling will not really make much of a difference. That's because I'm going and engaging online, and sharing stuff. I don't know why.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last thing that I want to ask you. This is just the last thing, I promise. You have, from what I've like from the time that we spend speaking to each other, I kind of get that you're very good at like being adaptable to the industry, to be adaptable to different things, and to kind of figuring out ways on how you can be relevant here, there, next month, etc. Have you ever thought of like maybe doing like talks in different places, like that?
No, I haven't. It's
Because this whole thing that you just told me about, hey Priyanka, like the product manager is just like one thing, but under that there are like there's a different kind of like skills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I speak for a lot of people who are in the industry that like what I'm doing or anything, like even like super seniors or like juniors as well. We're all like, okay, like what do we do? How many solopreneurs like me, or like how many small scale entrepreneurs like me, or how many agencies or how many companies are talking to their employees about how they can really dissect their skills, how they can even really dissect the job that they're doing. Really, some agencies will say, we are doing marketing and now AI is going to take our marketing jobs. But then when you go and talk to the marketing firm, there's probably a lot of in-betweens with them as well, right? That they can like actually like evolve and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, if there's a talk opportunity, knock on my door, please. Send me an email. Yeah, I would be. But no, long story short is no, I haven't thought about it. But I'm glad that it sounds like you found value in it. So maybe I'll think about that idea more of like, I think it was a very good question of like, oh, how do you actually get started with doing, you know, so you asked a very good question of like, how do you actually do this thing of naming your skills, which then led to that conversation.
Yeah. Because in my point of view, I think your ability to find connections and to adapt is a skill. Even even though that probably doesn't look like a skill in resume, but that is a super core skill in the current days that we're giving in.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up question is that like how many people do have that mental capacity to adapt? So
That's very true.
that gives an opportunity for coaching, right? Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
adapt.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And on that, like, I find one thing really inspiring is actually hanging out with, older people, and I love having older friends and like older mentors, and just seeing the breadth of mental flexibility, right? Like there are some people who really believe that, okay, my age or like the period in which I was born in limits me to XYZ. And on the other side, I kind of feel like I've met people in their 60s, 70s, 80s who have such an expansive mindset of like, I'm just going to continue to learn. I'm going to continue to, explore. And that's been super inspirational to me because I kind of feel like, wow, if those people who at that age have that kind of mindset, like what excuses do we have, right? Of
The opportunities that we have right now. Because like I said, it's a double-edged sword. There is pros and cons. And if we focus on the cons, there's like a lot of opportunities like you as well. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah.
Ines, thank you so much. Really, this turned like actually, I think this is exactly what I expected to come out. And thank you for being lovely, for smiling all the time, and like for kick points like point one, point two, point three. I was gonna say that you have that thing. Like, how many people before they even start talking, they're like, okay, point one, point two, point three. And you have that thing of like already putting things in bullet points, but that also shows your clarity in how you communicate. The clarity and also stress. It was super valuable. Seriously, I personally just forget about other people listening, but I personally love.
Yes, and that's the point. I mean, I had a bunch of fun. So thank you so much for like arranging and for sending the code DM. Yes to code DMs. And like that led to this conversation. And yeah, I find it really inspiring that you're doing all of this on the side as a one-man band, as a one-woman band, and juggling your full-time gig as a product manager. And yeah, keep going with it and tell me how I can help out.
Ines, thanks a lot. Really, sincerely, this was super valuable. I learned so much, and I think
I'm so
to a lot of people listening to this, I think it will always, a lot of things that you said will be more, it's already relevant, but it will be more and more relevant. And I will echo this idea of like this whole thing about like learning to break down the skills and being adaptable and everything. I will echo your message in as many places as to people and everything, because these are things that I often like talk with my friends and my colleagues and stuff like, what do we do? What do we do? We are always in panic mode. So this kind of
carry on. Yeah.
so thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it. And you take care and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, of course. All right.
Perfect.
Bye bye, Ines.